Now the next thing is we have to create the standby database. So how are we creating? We'll be using rman duplicate command to clone our production database. So first of all, on standby, create a parameter file. Let us do it. SQL plus /sysdba. Okay, before even getting into SQL plus, we have to check our environmental variables. So environmental variable SID, Oracle SID is set to clone. We will export Oracle underscore SID equal to proddb. So env grep aura proddb. Now connect to SQL plus /sysdba. What we need to do is we have to start up the database in no mount stage. Of course, even if you do not give the p file location, it will work, but that's okay. You can give the p file location and start your instance. Great, our instance on standby server is started. Next, we need to create an SP file from the p file which we created manually. Create SP file from p file. It's done. What we will do is we'll shut down and start the database once again, because we know that if there is SP file, automatically it will take the preference and database will start with the new SP file. So startup no mount, and we also know that when we are using rman duplicate, the auxiliary database where we are cloning, it must be in no mount state. Now we can also check show parameter SP file, and we see that our database instances started with the new SP file. Great. Just exit. Fine. Now what we need to do is duplicate the production server via rman. On the production, connect to the target, nothing but your production server itself via rman. We'll exit from SQL plus. We'll clear it. So rman target sys/sys@proddb. You have to give the ID password of sys user, otherwise rman duplicate command will throw an error. In other cases, while you are working with rman, just type rman target / it will work, but only in cloning make sure you give the ID password correctly. And we have also mentioned the proddb, that's the connection name. Even if we don't mention, it will connect to our target database proddb only. Fine, our rman is connected to the original production proddb. Next, what we can do is we can connect to our catalog server, because we have catalog in place, so why not connect to the catalog? Connect catalog rman underscore rc @rcat. Great. Now we would like to clone from production to our standby. Remember, whenever you want to clone any database using rman, the server on which you want to clone it becomes auxiliary. We will connect to the auxiliary server with the same same username and password, because we are using the same password file of our production server, and the connection name would be proddb underscore stb, because that is the server where we are connecting. So connect auxiliary sys/sys @proddb underscore stb. Now if you see once again, it is connected to target database proddb, and this is the DB ID, and it is also connected to the auxiliary database proddb, which is not at all mounted, because we know that we have kept it in no mount stage only. Right. Next thing is we just have to issue one command. In rman 11g we have duplicate target database command, we know that, but we have one more clause saying that for standby. If you use for standby, remember the control files that are created for your clone or auxiliary database, they will be created as per your standby database. In your standby database, there is a special type of control file. It is not a normal control file. So you have to mention for standby in order to allow rman duplicate command to create those standby control files. If you do not specify for standby, let's take if we have the default configuration like duplicate target database from active database no file name check. We have already seen this command. With this command, what will happen? Your ProdDB will be cloned as ProdDB onto the standby server. But then you cannot use the standby database for your data guard configuration because the control files are not standby control file. So in a data guard configuration, remember your standby database has a special type of control file, and while you perform an rman duplicate, you have to specify this for standby clause, and then only those standby control files will be generated. Right now on our standby server, only P file is there and we have started the database instance. We did not create the control files. This duplicate command will create those control files. So duplicate target database from standby for standby from active database no file name check. Let us execute this command. Enter. Now this command will start and duplicate your running production server to your auxiliary nothing but standby server. Now we see that finished backup, and we also see that backup as copy current control file for standby. We can see that standby control files are being created, and you can also see it will alter database mount standby database. It is not saying alter database mount. Now because you have standby control files, that's why it is saying mount standby database. And now all your data files will be copied. We can see that starting data file copy, data file 1 is being copying nothing but your system data file. And similarly, all the data files will be copied from your primary database to your standby database. So we see that our rman cloning is completed and all the data files from production have been copied to our standby server. Next, once the duplicate is done, we need to check the database status and roles. We have been talking a lot about database role change and the status of the databases. The production runs in open mode, the physical standby runs in mount mode. Let us look at those roles right now because already the database cloning is done. Our primary is there, our standby is also configured. Let us execute this command, select name, and we have a new column that will be querying, that is database role, comma, open mode from $database. We will run this query on both the servers. First on production, SQL plus /sysdba, select name, database role, open mode from $database. We see that it is ProdDB, database role is primary, and open mode is read write. Let us query our standby database, SQL plus /sysdba, select name, comma, database underscore role, comma, open underscore mode from $database. Now we see that the database name is also same ProdDB. This will help application not to complain that okay, I connected to a wrong database. The database role right now is physical standby and database is in mounted state. This command will tell you whether you are connected to primary or standby. Now one thing, I want to go back to the beginning of the course when we started. Remember, I told that every time you connect to a database, it is your job to issue this command, select name, comma, open mode from $database. Even though you are 16 years of experience, even though you are 20 years of experience as a DBA, whenever you connect to database, you have to issue this command. But question is why I used to stress on this one, because in a data guard configuration, when you connect to a database, you never know whether you are executing the commands onto production on a DR because the name is same. Now let us assume if I just query select name from $v database, and the same query I'll execute onto the physical standby. The name is ProdDB. Now without checking the open mode, I might by mistakenly execute some commands on my DR, or maybe some commands that I want to or I was supposed to run on my DR, I will run onto my production by just looking at the name. That's the reason as a DBA, even though you have 20 years of experience, every time whenever you connect to a database, always check both name and open mode. And this will give you a little clarify that, okay, right now I'm connected to production and I'm not supposed to run some queries over here. And same thing you query onto your standby database, you can see that, okay, yeah, it is in mounted state and I can execute queries over here. This is very important point, and always remember, in a data guard configuration you will be confused if you only look at the name in $v database. You must look at both name and open mode. So make it a habit that whenever you check the name of the database, you also check the open mode. It is just a matter of typing some few letters, but it will save your life. From my experience, I can tell you there are many DBAs who have executed wrong commands onto production server where they were supposed to run it onto DR server, just because they did not check the open mode or they feel lazy to type this command. In any environment, wherever you go, I suggest whenever you connect to a database, blindly type this command.